The chamber was massive, stretching upward into darkness that even the brightest lights could not reach. Teeman Park stood at the center of it all, feeling very small. Around him sat representatives from 40 different alien species, each one watching him with eyes that were nothing like human eyes. Some had 3 eyes, some had none at all, and some had clusters of glowing sensors where eyes should be. He had been coming to this place for 3 years now, always asking for the same thing, always hearing the same answer. Teeman wore his formal ambassador uniform, dark blue with silver trim that represented Earth and all her nations. His hands stayed clasped behind his back, even though they wanted to shake. This was the day they would give their final answer about the Ynoway Protocol. This protocol was a right, a permission that every intelligent species in the galaxy received. It allowed them to settle on planets and moons in nearby star systems, to spread out and grow beyond their home world. Earth had asked for this right 3 years ago, when humanity first made contact with the Galactic Council. The speaker stood up from his throne-like chair. His name was Voreth, and he came from a species called the Keldon. He was tall, maybe 9 feet, with skin that looked like polished stone. His voice came out in clicks and whistles, but the translator device on Teenan's ear changed it into perfect English. The words were cold and final. The Galactic Council has reviewed the petition from the species known as humans, Voreth said. His voice echoed through the chamber. We find that humanity is too young, too aggressive, and too dangerous to receive Ynoway rights at this time. Your species achieved space travel in only 200 years. This is far too fast. Your history shows constant warfare and violence. Your population grows at alarming rates. The Council has decided that Earth must remain within its own solar system for the foreseeable future. This decision is final. Teeman felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this answer, but hearing it still hurt. He bowed slightly, thanked the Council for their time, and walked out of the chamber. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor as he left. Behind him, he could hear the alien representatives talking among themselves, probably already forgetting about the humans and their rejected request. On the moon, in a command center buried deep under the gray dust, Admiral Hana Choi sat in front of a screen and watched the transmission from the Council. She was 62 years old and had spent 40 years in Earth's military. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her uniform had so many medals and ribbons that younger officers sometimes stopped counting. She watched Teeman's face on the screen as he received the rejection, and she nodded slowly. Predictable, she said to the officers around her. They were never going to say yes. Not to us. Not to anyone who reached the stars this quickly. Beside her, Dr. Doyon Lee leaned forward and adjusted his glasses. He was younger than Hana, maybe 45, with tired eyes from too many late nights studying alien cultures. He had been the one to predict this outcome 6 months ago. His research showed that the Galactic Council had a pattern. They never approved Ynoway rights for species that developed fast. The old alien civilizations liked things slow and predictable. Humanity was neither of those things. It is not just about our speed, Doyon said quietly. They are afraid of us. Our industrial capacity matches species that have been in space for thousands of years. Our population is 15 billion and growing. We build things faster, we adapt faster, we learn faster. They see us as competition, and they want us trapped in the Sol system forever. Hana stood up and looked around the command center. Officers worked at their stations, monitoring communications, tracking ships, coordinating Earth's growing fleet. Behind them, through the thick windows, she could see the blue and green Earth hanging in the black sky. It was beautiful, but it was also crowded. 15 billion people lived down there, and more were being born every day. The Sol system had colonies on Mars, on Europa, on Titan, and in the asteroid belt. But there were limits to how much humanity could expand here. They needed new worlds, new systems, new space to grow. Then we stopped asking for permission, Hana said. On Earth, in the glass and steel tower that housed the United Earth Assembly, President Minho Kong stood before 500 representatives from every nation on the planet. The room was loud with angry voices. Everyone had seen the rejection. Everyone knew what it meant. The aliens would keep humanity boxed in, would control their trade, would decide their future. The representatives shouted questions and demands all at once. Minho raised his hand, and the room slowly went quiet. He was 58 years old, with gray touching his temples and lines on his face from years of difficult decisions. He had been president for 6 years, and in that time he had united Earth more than any leader before him. But this was different. This was about the survival and future of the entire human species. The Galactic Council has rejected our petition, Minho said clearly. His voice carried through the room without shouting. They tell us we are too young, too dangerous, too fast. They want us to wait, perhaps for decades or centuries, while our population grows and our resources shrink. They want us to beg and plead for rights that should be ours by natural law. The room erupted in agreement. Representatives slammed their fists on desks and shouted their anger. Minho waited for silence again, then continued. I propose we invoke an older human tradition, the homesteader's right, the right of any free people to settle unclaimed land. The galaxy is vast, and most of it is empty. We will not wait for permission any longer. We will go to the stars ourselves. In orbit around Earth, Commander Jiwon Bei read her orders for the 5th time. She was 36 years old and commanded a fleet of colony ships that had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. The ships were loaded with prefabricated habitats, farming equipment, mining tools, and over 200,000 volunteers ready to leave Earth forever. The orders in her hand had a name at the top that made her smile. The Prometheus Doctrine. Prometheus was an old Earth myth about a being who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans. The gods punished him for it, but humans kept the fire anyway. Jiwon thought that was fitting. The Galactic Council was like those old gods, trying to keep humanity small and controlled. But humans had always been good at taking what they needed to survive. She walked to the bridge of her ship, the U-East Pioneer, and looked out at the fleet. 37 colony ships, 42 escort frigates, and 12 supply vessels. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled. She opened a communication channel to all ships. This is Commander Bei, she said. Plot courses for Ross 128, Wolf 359, and Tau Ceti. We launch in 12 hours. The galaxy told us no. We are about to show them that humans do not need permission to reach for the stars. The vote took 3 days of debate. But in the end, the United Earth Assembly passed the Prometheus Doctrine with an overwhelming majority. 473 representatives voted yes. Only 27 voted no. President Minho Kong signed the document in front of cameras that broadcast to every screen on Earth and throughout the Sol system. Then he did something that shocked the galaxy. He sent the same broadcast to the Galactic Council station. Minho sat at his desk, hands folded, looking directly into the camera. His voice was calm but firm. The Galactic Council has rejected our petition for Ynoway rights. We respect their decision, but we do not accept their authority over human expansion. The galaxy is vast and mostly empty. Unclaimed systems belong to no one, and therefore they can belong to anyone willing to sell them. As of today, Earth recognizes no alien authority over human colonization. We will settle any system we choose, following our own laws and our own rights. Our ships are already in transit to 17 systems. Each carries prefabricated colonies and volunteers ready to build new homes. This is not an act of war. This is an act of survival and freedom. The message reached the Galactic Council Station 6 hours later. Teeman Park was there when it played in the council chamber. He watched the alien representatives react. Some stood up in anger. Some made sounds that the translators could not interpret. Vorith, the Keldan speaker, turned colors that Teeman had never seen before, shifting from stone gray to something like dark red. "This is unacceptable," Vorith shouted. "Humanity cannot simply ignore council authority. This is chaos. This is anarchy." Teeman stood up from his seat in the observer section. He was the only human in the room, and every alien eye turned to look at him. He felt their anger like heat on his skin, but he kept his voice steady. "With respect, Speaker Vorith, I have studied galactic law very carefully over the past 3 years," Teeman said. "The Ynoway Protocol is a courtesy, not a requirement. There is no law that prevents any species from settling unclaimed space. The Council established this principle 4,000 years ago when the Altharian Collective settled the Outer Rim systems. Humanity is simply exercising the same rights that every species in this chamber has used." The chamber exploded with shouting. Councillor Thexus of the Vryn Trade Dominion demanded immediate military action. Others called for economic sanctions. But Teeman noticed something interesting. Not all the aliens looked angry. Some of the younger species, the ones who had joined the council recently, looked thoughtful. A few even looked impressed not far from the council station. Fleet Admiral Hana Choi stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Indomitable, the largest carrier humanity had ever built. Around her ship flew the colonial fleet, 37 vessels filled with hope and determination. Through the view screen, she could see the stars stretching into infinity. Somewhere out there was Ross 128, their first destination. "Status report," Hana said to her bridge crew. A young officer looked up from her console. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral. Colony transports are in formation. Escort frigates have taken defensive positions. Supply ships are maintaining pace. We are 6 hours from the hyperspace jump point." Hannah nodded. 6 hours until humanity took its biggest step since leaving Earth for the first time. 6 hours until they would either succeed or face war with the galaxy. She was not afraid. Fear was useless. She had spent 4 decades preparing for moments like this. The hyperspace jump was smooth. The fleet emerged near Ross 128, a small red star with 3 moons orbiting a gas giant in the habitable zone. Sensors swept the system and confirmed what the probe surveys had shown. No alien presence. No cities, no ships, no claim markers. The system was empty, and waiting. Colony Director Sung Ho Jin watched from the transport ship as they approached Ross 128b, the largest moon. He was 43 years old and had spent his career planning and building colonies on Mars and Europa. But those had been small outposts, limited by supplies from Earth. This was different. This was permanent. This was independence. "Begin landing sequence," Sung Ho ordered. The transport ships descended through the thin atmosphere. The moon below was rust-red and rocky, with frozen lakes at the poles and what looked like ancient river valleys. It was not Earth, but it was home now. The first transport touched down gently, and Sung Ho felt the slight bump through his boots. He smiled. Humans were now living beyond the Sol system. Within hours, prefabricated habitats rose from the red soil. Humans in environment suits worked quickly, connecting modules, setting up power generators, establishing communication arrays. Sung Ho walked among them, checking systems, answering questions, making decisions. By nightfall, though night on this moon lasted 6 Earth hours, they had a functioning colony of 2,000 people. Sung Ho stood outside. the main habitat, and looked up at the sky. The red star cast strange shadows, and the gas giant hung huge and beautiful on the horizon. He activated his communication link. "This is Colony Director Jin to Fleet Admiral Choi. New Haven Colony is established and operational. We claim this system for humanity." On the Galactic Council Station, the reaction was immediate and furious. Economic sanctions were announced within hours. 12 major species declared they would no longer trade with Earth. Vorath demanded a military response, claiming humanity had violated fundamental galactic order. The council chamber became a battlefield of words and accusations. Teeman Park stood his ground. He quoted law after law, precedent after precedent. He showed how the Keldon themselves had settled unclaimed systems in the same way 5,000 years ago. He demonstrated that the Vryn had expanded into 40 systems without asking anyone's permission. He made it clear that humanity was following rules the Council itself had established. Not everyone opposed humanity. The Tessic Commonwealth, a young species that had only joined the Council 50 years ago, spoke in support of Earth's actions. Their representative, a being named Minora, who looked like a collection of floating crystals, made a powerful statement. "The Council tells young species to wait, to be patient, to ask permission," Minora said, her voice like wind chimes. But the old species never waited. They took what they needed when they needed it. Now they tell us the rules have changed. Perhaps it is not humanity that is wrong. Perhaps it is the Council that has forgotten what it means to be a growing civilization. Back on Earth, Intelligence Director Ynoway sat in a dark room surrounded by screens. Each screen showed intercepted communications from different alien species. She was 39 years old and had been running Earth's intelligence operations for 5 years. Her job was to know what the galaxy was thinking before the galaxy knew itself. What she saw concerned her. The Keldon hegemony was assembling a fleet. Not a small one either. Reports showed at least 50 warships gathering at their forward base. The Vryn were organizing an economic blockade. But most interesting was the Altherian collective. The Altherians were ancient, older than any other species in the Council. They had been in space for over 50,000 years. They rarely spoke and almost never interfered in Council politics. But now the Altherians were watching. Their observation ships had appeared in 3 systems near Earth. They were not hostile, just watching. Una did not know what that meant, but it made her nervous. The Altherians did not do anything without reason. On the moon colony of New Haven, Song Ho Jin received a message from Earth. More colony ships were coming. The Prometheus Doctrine had inspired thousands of volunteers. People wanted to leave the crowded Earth and build new lives among the stars. Engineers, farmers, teachers, doctors, artists, families with children all willing to take the risk. Sung Ho looked around at the growing colony. Already they had expanded to 5,000 people. The habitats were full of life and noise and hope. Children played in the recreation areas, learning to move in the lower gravity. Farmers worked in hydroponic bays, growing the first crops. Engineers built machines that would mine the moon's resources. This was what humanity did best. They adapted. They built. They survived. The galaxy could reject them, sanction them, even threaten them. But humans would keep pushing forward, keep reaching for the stars, keep refusing to accept limits that others tried to impose. Sung Ho activated his communication to all colonists. "This is Director Jin. I know many of you are worried about the Council's reaction. I know you wonder if we made the right choice. But look around you. We are building something new here. We are proving that humanity does not need permission to exist and grow. The galaxy will learn that humans cannot be contained. Not by threats, not by sanctions, not by anything except their own choice to stop. And we will never choose to stop. Commander Dayan Seo was drinking coffee when the alarm started. He was on the bridge of the UE's Defender, a frigate assigned to protect the new colony at Wolf 359. The coffee was terrible, made from recycled water and synthetic beans. But it was hot, and it kept him awake during the long watch. He put down the cup and looked at his tactical display. 6 red dots appeared on the screen. They had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The computer identified them immediately. Keldon warships. 3 cruisers and 3 destroyers, all armed and moving fast toward the colony planet. Dayan was 34 years old and had trained for this moment his entire career. But training and reality were different things. His hands moved quickly across the controls, sending alerts to the other human ships in the system and down to the colony below. He opened a channel to the Keldon fleet. Keldon vessels, this is Commander CO of the United Earthship Defender. You are entering a claimed human system. State your intentions. The response came quickly. The voice was translated into English, cold and mechanical. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Council authority. Evacuate this system immediately, or face military consequences. You have 1 hour to comply. Dayan looked at his crew. 5 other humans sat at their stations, watching him, waiting for orders. They were scared. He was scared too. But his orders from Fleet Admiral Choi were very clear. Defend the colonists by any means necessary. Keldon vessels, we decline your demand. This system belongs to humanity. Leave now, or we will defend our claim. There was silence for 10 seconds. Then the Keldon ships opened fire. The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted 17 minutes and changed everything. Dayan watched his screen as Keldon energy weapons lit up the darkness. The beams were powerful, capable of cutting through ship hulls like paper. But human ships did not fight the way Keldon ships fought. Humans fought dirty. The Defender and 2 other frigates split up, moving fast in different directions. The Keldon ships had better shields and stronger weapons, but human ships were smaller and faster. Dayan's tactics were simple: avoid the energy weapons and hit them with kinetic kill vehicles. KKVs were not fancy. They were just chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. No explosives, no special technology, just mass and velocity. But when a 50-kilogram tungsten rod hits a ship at 30 kilometers per second, fancy technology does not matter. It punches through shields like they are not there. Captain Yoonji Han commanded another frigate called the Defiant. She was 29 years old and the youngest captain in the fleet. She flew her ship like she was born in space, dancing around Keldon weapons fire while their crew fired KKV after KKV. 2 of the Keldon cruisers tried to target her, but she was too fast. Her railguns fired, and 2 tungsten rods hit the lead cruiser exactly where the computer predicted, right through the engineering section. The cruiser exploded in a flash of light. The Keldon ships were confused. They had expected human vessels to be easy targets, primitive and weak. Instead, they faced coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Weapons that ignored their shields and tactics that made no sense by Keldon standards. Another cruiser took damage, then a destroyer. The Keldon commander made a decision. The remaining 4 ships jumped back into hyperspace, retreating. Dayan let out a breath he did not know he was holding. His crew cheered. They had won. 3 human ships against 6 Keldon warships, and humans had won. He opened a channel to the Keldon fleet as they fled. Keldon vessels, this system is human territory. Any who contest this will face the full measure of human resolve. Tell your council that humanity does not surrender what is ours. The message was recorded and spread across the galaxy within hours. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. The fear that the Galactic Council would crush humanity's expansion disappeared. Humans could defend themselves. They could fight and win against species that had been in space for thousands of years. But Admiral Hannah Choi did not celebrate. She sat in her command center on Luna and looked at reports from the battle. Yes, they had won. But the Keldon had only sent 6 ships. Next time they would send 60. She called her senior officers together. "We need better defenses," Hannah said. "We cannot protect 17 colonies with 40 frigates. We need the Defense Deep project accelerated. I want automated defense platforms in every claimed system within 6 months." Defense Deep was ambitious. Automated platforms with KKV launchers, powered by fusion reactors, controlled by artificial intelligence. They would defend human colonies, even if no ships were present. It was expensive and difficult, but it was necessary. On Earth, President Min Ho Kong received visitors he had not expected. Ambassadors from 12 different species requested meetings. These were not the old, powerful species like the Keldon or Vryn. These were younger civilizations, some barely 100 years in space. They all wanted the same thing: information about human military technology. A representative from the Tessig Commonwealth offered a trade agreement. Their representative Minora floated in the meeting room, her crystalline body reflecting light and rainbow patterns. "Your species has proven something important," Minora said. "Size and age do not determine strength. Determination and innovation do. The Tessig would like to establish trade relations with humanity. We can offer rare minerals. In exchange, we would like access to your defensive technologies." Minho was careful. He could not give away military secrets, but he could build alliances. The galaxy was watching humanity now. Some with fear, some with anger, but some with hope. If humanity could stand against the Council, maybe other young species could too. The Keldon hegemony did not accept defeat quietly. War Master Kelric, the highest military commander in Keldon space, assembled a fleet of 90 warships. It was the largest Keldon fleet in 300 years. He gave speeches about honor and dominance, about teaching humanity their place. The fleet prepared to leave for human space. Then something unexpected happened. The Altherian Collective issued a statement. The Altherians were ancient and mysterious. They lived in the deep core of the galaxy, in systems so old that their stars were dying. They rarely spoke to anyone. Most species considered them myths or legends. But their message was clear and broadcast across all Council frequencies. Any military action against human settlements will be considered an act of aggression against Altherian protectorate interests. The Altherian Collective recognizes human sovereignty in all systems they have claimed. We advise all species to respect this sovereignty. The galaxy stopped. Nobody understood why the Altherians had intervened. War Master Kelric canceled the attack order. Even the Keldon would not risk war with the Altherians. The ancient species had technology that nobody understood, weapons that nobody had seen in thousands of years. They were peacekeepers by choice, not by weakness. Dr. Doyan Lee read the Altherian message over and over. Something about it felt intentional, like the Altherians had been waiting for this moment. He dug through decades of research on the ancient species. He found references to testing and observation. He found records of Altherian ships near Earth, going back 50 years, long before humanity had made official contact with the galaxy. Then he understood. The Altherians had been watching humanity the entire time. They had been testing them, waiting to see if humans would stand up against the Council's control. The Galactic Council had become stagnant, ruled by old species that feared change. The Altherians wanted to see if humanity had the courage to challenge that system. And humanity had passed their test. Doyan sent his findings to President Kang and Admiral Choi. The message was simple. Humanity had powerful friends now, But those friends expected humans to keep being bold and independent. The Altherians had not saved humanity out of kindness. They had recognized something in human nature, a refusal to accept unjust limits, a determination to chart their own path. On the colony of New Haven, Song Ho Jin stood with a group of children who had been born on Earth, but would grow up on this red moon under a red sun. They asked him questions about Earth, about the war, about the Altherians. He answered honestly. "We are building something new here," Song Ho told them. "Humanity has always pushed forward, always explored, always refused to stop growing. The galaxy tried to put us in a cage, but we broke free. Now we have to prove we deserve that freedom. We have to show we can build good lives, peaceful lives, but lives we choose for ourselves. That is what makes us human." The standoff at Tau Ceti lasted 3 weeks. A Keldan fleet of 20 warships sat at the edge of the system, weapons ready but not firing. Human defensive platforms surrounded the colony planet, their KKV launchers pointed outward. Neither side moved. Neither side backed down. And floating between them, silent and watching, were 3 Altherian observer ships. Tim and Park had watched the situation develop with growing concern. War had been avoided at Wolf 359 because the battle was quick and decisive. But this was different. This was a stalemate, and stalemates could turn into massacres if someone made the wrong move. He spent days thinking about solutions, running through possibilities, discarding ideas that would not work. Then he had an idea that was so simple he almost laughed. He sent a message to President Min Ho Kong. The message contained 3 words: let them compete. Junior Ambassador Borum Song was Timon's assistant on the council station. She was 28 years old and had only been in the diplomatic service for 3 years. But she was smart and creative, and she understood something that older diplomats sometimes forgot, that young species were tired of the old rules. Borum worked with Timon to develop what they called the Crucible Accords. The concept was revolutionary, but also ancient. Instead of fighting wars over contested systems, species would compete to develop them. Each side could send colonists, build infrastructure, establish communities. After 5 years, neutral observers would assess which civilization had invested more in the system. The winner would get sovereignty. The loser would evacuate peacefully. Tamin presented the proposal to the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Representatives from 70 species had come to watch. The tension was thick enough to touch. Timon stood in the center and explained the Crucible Accords clearly and simply. "War destroys," Timon said. "Competition builds. The galaxy is large enough for many species. But contested systems need clear rules. Let us compete to prove our commitment. Let us race to develop, not destroy. The species that invests the most, that builds the best communities, that proves the strongest dedication, that species earns the right to claim the system." Councillor Thexus of the Vryn immediately objected. He was an old being, over 500 years old by human counting, and he believed in the old ways of council control. This is barbaric. This is returning to primitive competition. The council exists to prevent such chaos. But Minora of the Tessic Commonwealth stood and spoke in favor. Her crystalline body rang like bells as she moved. "The counselor says this is primitive. I say the current system is unfair. Ancient species hold the best systems through bureaucratic monopoly. Young species are told to wait centuries for permission. The Crucible Accords give everyone a fair chance. They reward effort and investment, not just age and political power." Other young species agreed. Representatives from 12 different civilizations spoke in support. The old powers, the Keldan, the Vryn, the Karathi Empire, all opposed it. But they were outnumbered. The vote was close. But the Crucible Accords passed with 61% approval. President Minho Kong accepted the accords immediately. He knew humanity's advantages. Humans had massive industrial capacity thanks to their automated factories. Their population was growing fast, producing plenty of colonists. Human engineers were innovative and adaptable. In a development race, humanity would be very difficult to beat. The first test came at Epsilon Eridani. The system had 3 planets and dozens of moons. Both humans and the Vryn claimed it. Under the old rules, they might have fought a war. Under the Crucible Accords, they would compete. Each side had 5 years to develop the system. Neutral observers from the Tessic Commonwealth would judge the results. The Vryn poured resources into Epsilon Eridani Z, the largest planet. They built magnificent cities with towers that reached into the clouds. Their architecture was beautiful. Crystalline structures that caught sunlight and turned it into rainbow displays. Vryn technology was impressive. Their cities were clean, efficient, and stunning to see. But colony governor Taiji Nam had different priorities. He was 51 years old and had spent his life building practical solutions to difficult problems. He did not care about beauty. He cared about sustainability and growth. He focused on agriculture, water reclamation, power generation, and community infrastructure. Taijin built farms that could feed 10,000 people. He established water systems that recycled every drop. He created schools, hospitals, and recreational facilities. He made sure every colonist had a job, a home, and a reason to stay. It was not fancy, but it worked. Months passed. Human colonists arrived by the thousands. Families came, not just workers. Children were born in the colony. Engineers designed better systems. Farmers grew new crops adapted to local conditions. Teachers educated the next generation. Doctors kept everyone healthy. The colony grew organically, naturally, like a living thing. The Vryn brought workers, but not families. Their cities were impressive, but empty feeling. They had technology, but not community. When assessment day came after 5 years, the numbers told the story. The human settlement had 40,000. Permanent residents, fully integrated infrastructure, sustainable food and water systems, and a growing economy. The Vryn colony had 5,000 workers, beautiful but impractical buildings, and supply lines that still depended on shipments from Vryn space. The Tessic observers made their decision. Humanity won Epsilon Eridani. The Vryn evacuated peacefully, as the Accords required, though they were clearly unhappy about it. But they had agreed to the rules, and breaking them would have been worse than losing. Not everyone accepted the Crucible Accords peacefully. Pirates and mercenaries began attacking human supply convoys. The attacks were coordinated and well-funded. Intelligence Director Yuna O traced the money and found it led back to hardline factions within the Council. Some powerful species were secretly funding these attacks, trying to undermine humanity through proxies. Captain Narration was 42 years old and commanded a merchant vessel called the Prosperity. She was transporting supplies to the colony at Gliese 832 when pirates attacked. Her ship was not military, just a cargo hauler with basic shields. But Myray had served in the Earth Navy before becoming a merchant captain, and she knew how to fight. The pirates thought she would surrender. Instead, she activated the cargo-mounted railgun that civilian ships were now allowed to carry for defense. The weapon was not as powerful as military versions, but it was enough. Myray personally manned the gun during the firefight, destroying one pirate ship and damaging 2 others badly enough that they retreated. She made it to Gliese 832, delivered her cargo, and refused any special recognition. "I was just protecting my ship and my crew," she said. "Every merchant does what they have to do." But the pirate attacks continued. 3 human convoys were destroyed. Dozens of people died. Then came the attack on Gliese 667 that changed everything. Radicals from the Keldon hegemony used a biological weapon against the human colony there. The weapon was designed to kill humans specifically. It spread through the air systems before anyone realized what was happening. Over 3,000 people died. Men, women, children, elderly, young. The weapon did not discriminate. It was the worst attack on humans since they had left Earth. The colony's hospital director, a woman named Dr. Sora Yoon, worked for 72 hours straight trying to save people. She managed to synthesize an antidote, but it came too late for most. Fleet Admiral Hana Choi received the reports and felt cold rage build inside her. This was not war. This was murder. She assembled a strike force of 15 warships and gave them one objective: destroy the Keldon forward base at Groombridge 34. The attack was swift and brutal. Human ships hit the base with overwhelming firepower. Hana's orders were specific: destroy military targets, but capture any officers involved in the bioweapon attack. Her forces followed those orders exactly. They destroyed weapon platforms and military ships, but captured 4 Keldon officers who had been directly responsible for the Gliese 667 attack. Hana delivered the captured officers to the Galactic Council personally. She walked into the council chamber in her full military uniform, with the 4 Keldon officers in restraints behind her. She placed data chips on the council floor containing complete evidence of the bioweapon conspiracy. The Galactic Council claims to maintain peace and order, Hana said, her voice hard. Here is evidence of a war crime committed by Keldon military officers. Over 3,000 human civilians were murdered. These officers are responsible. They will face justice. If the Council does not provide that justice, humanity will. The council chamber was silent. Even Voreth, the Keldon speaker, looked shocked. The evidence was undeniable. Communication logs, weapon design files, orders signed by Keldon commanders. The conspiracy went high into the Keldon military structure. Teeman Park stood beside Hana and added his own statement. The Crucible Accords were designed to prevent violence. Humanity has followed these accords faithfully. But if others use biological weapons against our civilians, we will respond with the full force of our military. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We will defend our people. The trial began immediately. The 4 Keldon officers were found guilty by a council tribunal. More shocking was what came next. The investigation revealed that 12 high-ranking officials in the Keldon government had known about the attack. The scandal destroyed Keldon credibility. 4 species broke diplomatic ties with the Keldon hegemony. 8 others demanded major reforms in council procedures. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was forced to confront its own failures. The old system of control and monopoly was cracking. Young species saw that change was possible. The galaxy was entering a new era, and humanity was at the center of it. The trial of the Keldon bioweapon conspirators lasted 6 weeks. Every day, more evidence emerged. Communication records showed the conspiracy reached the highest levels of Keldon military command. Financial records proved that funds for the attack came from official Keldon government accounts. Witness testimony from Keldon officers who had refused to participate revealed the true scope of the plot. Teeman Park presented the evidence with calm precision. He did not shout or accuse. He simply laid out facts, one after another, building an undeniable case. When he finished, even the most loyal Keldon allies in the council could not defend them. The tribunal found all 12 high-ranking officials guilty of war crimes. The punishment was severe exile from council space and permanent travel restrictions. But the damage to the Keldon went beyond legal consequences. Their reputation as honorable warriors was destroyed. Species that had respected them for millennia now saw them as murderers willing to kill civilians. 12 species broke diplomatic ties. 4 more demanded the Keldan be expelled from the Council entirely. The Keldan hegemony fractured. Internal political fights erupted between those who supported the bioweapon attack and those who opposed it. Their government fell into chaos. Within months, the Keldan withdrew from most Council activities, retreating into isolation to deal with their internal problems. The Altherian Collective chose this moment to speak again. Elder Synthera, one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, addressed the Council for the first time in 300 years. She appeared via hologram, her form barely visible, more energy than matter. Her voice sounded like wind through ancient forests. "The Galactic Council has lost its way," Synthera said. "You were created to foster cooperation and growth. Instead, you have become gatekeepers, preventing change and protecting old power structures. You fear young species not because they are dangerous, but because they challenge your comfort. This cannot continue." The council chamber was absolutely silent. Nobody interrupted an Altherian elder. "Ever," Synthera continued. "Humanity represents an opportunity. They are bold, innovative, and determined. They refuse to accept unjust limitations. This is not a flaw. This is exactly what the galaxy needs. The Altherian Collective has watched humanity for 50 of their years. We have seen them overcome war, unite their world, reach the stars, and stand against those who would contain them. They have passed our test. We recognize their sovereignty in all systems they have claimed. We call on all species to do the same." When Synthera's hologram faded, the galaxy had changed. The ancient species, the ones everyone respected and feared, had endorsed humanity. Young species rushed to follow their lead. Within days, 47 species formally recognized human sovereignty. More importantly, they wanted to learn from humanity's example. President Minho Kong saw the opportunity. He proposed something radical, the Aurora Charter. It was a new framework for galactic governance, designed to balance the interests of ancient species with the needs of younger civilizations. The charter included several key provisions. First, guaranteed expansion rights for all species, based on clear, fair criteria. No more arbitrary decisions about who could settle where. Second, mutual defense agreements between species willing to support each other. Third, mandatory technology sharing on peaceful innovations like agriculture, medicine, and environmental systems. Fourth, and most revolutionary, term limits for council seats. No species could hold a council position for more than 200 years without re-election. The old powers hated it. The Vring Trade Dominion split in half over the charter. The traditionalist faction refused to accept any limits on their council authority. The reformist faction embraced the changes, seeing them as necessary for the galaxy's future. The Karathi Empire also fractured, with younger Karathi pushing for reform while their elders resisted. But 57 species signed the Aurora Charter within the first month. These were mostly young civilizations, but they represented billions of citizens across thousands of worlds. They were tired of waiting for permission from species that had forgotten what it meant to grow and adapt. 5 years after the original rejection, Teeman Park stood before the council again. But it was a very different council now. The chamber had new representatives from species that had never held council seats before. The Tessic Commonwealth held 3 seats. Humanity held 2. The old powers still had influence, but they no longer had absolute control. 5 years ago, you rejected our petition for Ynoway rights, Teeman said. You called us too young, too aggressive, too dangerous. Today, humanity has 19 permanent settlements across the stars. 3 million humans live in these colonies. Our settlements have not brought war or chaos. They have brought innovation, cooperation, and growth. Teeman displayed data on screens throughout the chamber. Human agricultural technology had helped 6 species overcome food shortages. Medical research from human colonies had led to cures for 3 previously incurable diseases. Human engineers had designed more efficient fusion reactors that were now being shared freely under the Aurora Charter. Trade networks that included human settlements were more prosperous than those that excluded them. We did not ask permission because permission is not required for fundamental rights, Teeman continued. We claimed our place in the galaxy because we had earned it. We have proven that humanity can be responsible members of the galactic community. We have also proven that we will not accept unjust restrictions on our freedom. The choice is yours, members of the Council. You can continue to resist change and become irrelevant, or you can embrace the new order that is already forming around you. The vote was not even close. The Council formally recognized all human settlements and granted humanity full Ynoway rights with no restrictions. Vorith, the Keldan speaker who had rejected humanity 5 years earlier, was not present. He had resigned in disgrace. Dr. Doyan Lee published his comprehensive study on humanity's integration into galactic society. The research took him 3 years to complete and filled over 2,000 pages. His central conclusion surprised many people who had expected a military analysis. Humanity's success in the galaxy does not come from their weapons or their aggression, Doyan wrote. It comes from their adaptability and their willingness to cooperate with anyone who approaches them fairly. Humans are not naturally confrontational. They are naturally pragmatic. When treated with respect, they respond with respect. When their fundamental rights are threatened, they respond with force. This is not unique to humanity. It is how any healthy species operates. What is unique is humanity's speed of adaptation and their refusal to accept that tradition or age grants authority over basic freedoms. The study became required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. Young species studied it to learn how to stand up for themselves. Old species studied it to understand why their traditional methods were failing. Fleet Admiral Hannah Choi retired after 6 years of managing Earth's colonial expansion. She gave a final speech at Luna Command Academy to the graduating class of naval officers. She was 68 years old now, with more gray in her hair and deeper lines on her face. But her eyes were still sharp, and her voice still strong. I have spent most of my life preparing for war, Hannah told the young officers. I trained you to fight, to defend, to win against impossible odds. And you have done all of that brilliantly. But I want you to understand something important. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our tactics. It was our refusal to accept that someone else's rules were more important than our fundamental rights. She paused and looked at each young face in the audience. You will face many challenges in your careers. You will encounter species that fear us, species that respect us, and species that want to limit us. Remember that we did not reach the stars by asking permission. We reached them by believing we had the right to be here. Maintain that belief, but also maintain honor. Fight when necessary, but prefer cooperation. Be strong, but never cruel. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us worthy of our place among the stars. On the colony world of New Haven, Sung Ho Jin stood with a group of teenagers who had never seen Earth. They were the first generation born on another world, raised under a red sun, breathing air that was partially imported and partially produced by terraforming plants. They asked him what Earth was like, if he missed it, if he regretted leaving. Earth will always be home, Sung Ho told them. But home is not a place. Home is a feeling. It is belonging, purpose, community. You have all of that here. You are building something that has never existed before, a truly multiplanetary human civilization. Your children might be born on a dozen different worlds. Your grandchildren might not even think of themselves as being from any one planet. They will be children of the stars. One teenager asked, "Do you think the galaxy will ever really accept us? Or will they always see us as too young, too different?" Sung Ho smiled. "The galaxy has already accepted us. They just do not realize it yet. In 50 years, there will be 100 human worlds. In 100 years, maybe 1,000. We will be everywhere, building, growing, trading, cooperating. We will be so integrated into galactic civilization that nobody will remember a time when we were not here." That is how you change a culture, not by fighting it, but by becoming an essential part of it. In Geneva on Earth, in the historic building where the United Earth Assembly met, a plaque was installed. President Min Ho Kong had ordered it placed where everyone who entered would see it. The plaque was simple, just words carved into metal. But those words had started humanity's rise among the stars. The plaque read, "The cosmos belongs to those bold enough to claim their place in it. Not through conquest, but through conviction. Not through destruction, but through determination. We are humanity. We are here. And we will never ask permission to exist." Thousands of light years away, in the ancient core systems where the Altherians lived, Elder Cynthara watched humanity's expansion on holographic displays. She had lived for 60,000 years and had seen countless species rise and fall. Most grew strong, then stagnant, powerful, then afraid. They built empires, then spent millennia defending them from change. Humanity was different. They grew and kept growing, never satisfied with what they had, but always pushing forward. They were not perfect, no species was. But they had something special, something the galaxy desperately needed. The courage to challenge injustice, even when that injustice was ancient and accepted. The willingness to take risks for freedom, even when safety was easier. Cynthara had tested them, watched them, judged them, and she had decided they deserved their chance. The galaxy was about to enter a new era, one where youth and boldness mattered as much as age and tradition. Humanity would lead that change, whether the old powers accepted it or not. In the end, that was the story of humanity among the stars. Not a story of conquest or domination. A story of refusal to accept limits imposed by others. Refusal to wait for permission to grow. Refusal to believe that age granted authority over freedom. Humans reached the stars not because they were the strongest or smartest or most advanced. They reached them because when the galaxy said no, humanity simply said yes and moved forward anyway. And the galaxy, slowly, reluctantly, but inevitably, followed them into a better future.